Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sports in the Mitten podcast. It's Sunday night, October 1st. We're already into the month of Halloween. And I am Thomas Beindit back here for one of our Sunday night podcasts with Adam Biggers. Adam, how's everything going?
Uh, Everything's going well, Thomas. Michigan had the week off for improvement week. Michigan State played Iowa. I was at that game. Michigan. It's officially the start of Michigan State week. Basketball season's around the corner. I already got the email to apply for credentials at Michigan. So
Yeah,
uh, right now it's like, yeah. I mean, football just started, and like now I'm starting to think basketball. And then obviously with the huge story this past week, NCAA basketball, the recruiting and funneling money to players and things like that. And Thomas will get in that tonight a little bit. College
yeah.
basketball certainly his area of expertise. And this can change a lot of things. So we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to talk Michigan State and Iowa, and obviously field any questions out there, guys. If you're watching the live stream, you can uh, get your questions in on Twitter at Adam Biggers 81. Or read them live while we're doing this, or you can comment in the live stream, which Thomas is monitoring right now. So I guess Tom, I want to start with this. What were your impressions, Michigan State? I'll preface it by saying this: that it was a must win for Michigan State. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was a must win game for the Spartans, especially after getting embarrassed at home by Notre Dame. You want to open up the conference season with a win, but also look who the next opponent is. So Mark D'Antonio likened it to a 12-round fight, and I think that with Michigan a gut check even, and now we're looking at Michigan, which got a gut check of its own on the road at Purdue. I guess just your thoughts watching Michigan State, what you're thinking about going into this week.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a big win for the Spartans. I mean, uh, as far as must win, I mean, there's not much debating. I mean, when you are, uh, they were 2-1, but I mean, I think we do have to acknowledge didn't beat the best of competition. I mean, they were 0-1 in their legit game, and Western was a solid opponent, but I mean, not at what the level Michigan State is hoping to get to. We'll just say that this year. So I mean, you come in, you get blown out by Notre Dame. I mean, we've talked about it before. You know, some of the yardage issues. Notre Dame won that game. They won it convincingly. But with Iowa, if you lose to Iowa, not only is it a big hit to your chances. I don't remember where we were at preseason, but I think we were both around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in there. And this is a big swing game on that slate. I mean, you get this one, and now it's kind of you're working, from ahead a little bit. You have a little margin for error now moving forward, at least in my opinion, to hit some of those preseason predictions. And like you were talking about, just the psychology. If you were 2-2, had lost to Notre Dame and Iowa at home, and then followed that up with a trip to Michigan, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. So they get a win, get the confidence back. I think Iowa's a solid team this year. So I think that's a win MSU fans should be happy with, proud of. I thought the defense played well, and that's what they're going to need on the road because, you don't know how your offense can play on the road in a challenging environment. So if that defense can show up in Ann Arbor, I think the Spartans can be in the game.
That a few things I guess thinking of Michigan State, and yes, I'll go back to the preseason prediction. I figured 7-5 would be kind of
Mm-hmm.
the full eligibility to be the goal. 7-5. I figured just given the losses, the amount of new faces, Michigan State's played like 13 true freshmen this season too, and a lot of that is out of necessity, not as where Michigan last year and this year can do that because there's depth and there's opportunity. Michigan State needs to play these young players because they need personnel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all things considered, I mean, Michigan State already equaling its win total from last year. I think the trajectory for the Spartans is up. With Iowa too, this is a team that almost beat Penn State. And if you saw Penn State against Indiana, Thomas, you and I have talked about Penn State. I've been saying I like Penn State for a long time now, and I think people are realizing that. So just by connecting those dots, the way that Iowa played against Penn State, lost on the last possession, we already knew this was going to be that type of game with Michigan State. I remember on the conference call talking to Kirk Ferentz and Mark D'Antonio about it. And I mean, how many times have we seen Iowa and Michigan State go down to the wire?
Yeah.
Mark D'Antonio was 4-4. Now he's 5-4. Ferentz was 7-7 against Michigan State. Now he's 7-8. The series is 23-22-2 in favor of Iowa. I mean, you can't get any more even in terms of that. And yeah, I thought Michigan State's defense last night, Joe Bocci especially, 3.5 tackles for a loss, 9 tackles. Kari Willis was really good too. He had 6 tackles and a tackle for a loss. I was really impressed with Chris Fry, and I'll talk about Chris Fry probably all week. And I remember during last week's availability, Chris Evans, Michigan running back, saying that, yeah, you know, you got to pay attention to number 23. He's coming back from last year. He's a rowdy boy or something like that. He used the word rowdy with Chris Fry, and Chris Fry yesterday with a big fumble recovery and return for, I think it was about 8 or 9 yards, something like that. Nonetheless, Michigan State's defense looked pretty solid. I mean, giving up 10 points to Iowa, I knew it was going to be a slugfest. And I do think if you're a Michigan State fan, this wasn't just a 17-10 win against Iowa. This was, I don't know if I want to call it a statement so early, but it was a validating win because people were questioning, okay, Michigan State's only played 2 MAC opponents going into Notre Dame. You know, there were a lot of people who thought Notre Dame was just going to run up the score and blow them out. I thought it would be a closer game than what it was. And by rights, it should have been. That should have been a 14-14 game at halftime. First half was competitive. It wasn't nearly, the score was a little deceptive. But then you're wondering, okay, what type of response are you going to see out of Michigan State after just getting, its butt handed to itself at home? So I think if you just, across the board right there, it's check, check, check. There's no way that this is not a quality win. There's no way that it can be lessened. Look, this was a pretty good Iowa team. It really was. I mean, I think Iowa was probably a bowl team.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
You know, I mean, 6, 7, 8 wins in that range. I think if you're Michigan State, you have to feel pretty good about yourself. Like you said, this was, I don't look at it just a close win and kind of a game that we thought was going to, you know, a lot of people thought the game was going to go this way. History has shown us that. But at the end of the day, 4 games into the season, if you want something that you can kind of, you know, rest your hat on or whatever saying you want to use, if you want to use something that you can latch onto for real now, it was the Iowa game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, last year's team would not have won that game. I mean, we can all agree to that. And to me, that's the first nail in the argument. And I think Michigan State's better than they were last year. You know, I know the first retort is, well, they weren't that good last year, which is true, but they're improved.
Well, they had talent. They Michigan State certainly had some talent last year, but no, it was not good.
No. But they've taken a step forward. They have some things moving in the right direction. And I think this week certainly is going to be another test going on the road. We should note, Michigan State's first road game of the year. Michigan, a lot of people made jokes about Michigan not playing on the road for a long time last year. Michigan State, it worked out in their favor this year. So going on the road and that offense is going to be put to the test, that's for sure, with Michigan's defense.
Yeah, I'm excited about this game from a couple different standpoints. And the first is, I mean, statistically, Thomas, and I tweeted this like last week because Michigan State at the time had the number 3 ranked total defense in the country, and Michigan had number 5. And Michigan fans freaked out for a second, and there's no compare. I didn't compare. I'm just saying. I know that it was against different competition in only 2 games. At that point, Michigan had played 3 games, including, against Florida SEC team, neutral site, yada yada yada. So we already knew that was a given. I was just kind of surprised, numbers wise, for Michigan State to be there. But now after seeing them against Notre Dame, I was kind of questioning the Spartans. Benefiting from, kind of lower tier competition. Although I think Western Michigan was still a good, worthy opponent. But now you see against Iowa, just kind of like with Michigan against Purdue. You see it against a Big Ten team. You saw the offense starting to click. Okay, you could kind of see some things. With Michigan State's defense, I'm not saying that the Spartans are going to be a top 10 total ranked defense all season long, but there is substance to Michigan State's defense. And I'm interested to see the test. There's a lot of matchups in this game, actually, that I'm excited about. And I mean, Chris Fry and running backs, Devin Bush and LJ Scott, Khaleke Hudson and LJ Scott. I imagine that's going to be one. I mean, who knows who we're going to see on Felton Davis. And Felton Davis was looking like a superstar yesterday. And I've said this before. I think Felton is vastly underrated. We've barely seen it. He came into last night's game, Thomas, with 26 career catches. He had 9 last night. He had 4 during the first drive for 67 yards and a touchdown. I mean, Felton Davis and Brian Lewerke are looking like what I think Michigan fans hope that John O'Korn can develop with a receiver going at this point. Michigan State doesn't rely on the tight end as much as Michigan does. And I think we already know that O'Korn to McCune and Gentry, that's going to be there.
Yeah.
And, I was waiting to see if Wilton Spate and DPJ, well, can we see John O'Korn and DPJ kind of do that? And I think that's not a direct comparison, but I'm saying that for Michigan State's offense, that Lewerke to Felton Davis is a similar kind of asset.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Michigan State can do against a real deal defense. At the same time, this is a rivalry game. Michigan's been off, sitting idle, by the time they play for 13 days, and it's a night game too. I mean, do you think there's going to be any rust with Michigan?
I don't think there's going to be much rust. Personally, I don't think so. Especially with the offense, assuming. I'm sure that, the big question with Michigan is going to be who's the quarterback, what's happening with the offense. I think at this point we have to assume it's going to be O'Korn, at least for this game. To start off with, we don't know if Spate's going to be at 100%. Obviously, Harbaugh isn't exactly very open about, injuries with the media. So I think we'll have to wait and see with that aspect. But assuming, maybe if Spate isn't 100%, it'll probably be O'Korn, not only because he's not 100%, but also because he did play really well against Purdue in that second half. I think he got into a groove, and I think he deserves a shot. He at least deserves a shot. Again, assuming Spate can come back, that's sort of the big asterisk here. We don't know his status. We don't know where he's going. But I think that's the big thing, for Michigan, what you're looking for. And as far as the rust, I think if you're working in a new quarterback, I mean, I would be hard pressed to think that you're not going to be on your toes. But yeah, I'm very excited for this game. I think both teams still have a lot to prove. I think this is a bigger opportunity, and I don't know necessarily about everyone else, but I love that this game is at night. I'm really excited for it. I think the tailgating is going to be fantastic for everyone there. Maybe the crowd is going to be a bit rowdy.
It's going to be a mess in Ann Arbor, man. That is going to be a mess. The parking lots are opening at 12. So, I mean, this is a whole nother topic. I've talked to some friends. I know people are going down there, and it is, man.
It's going to be wild.
All I have to say is just pace yourself. It's a night game. I mean, this is good. We have some questions in the live chat. A couple from Defo and TSYU7, and both of them. Let's start with Defo. Thanks for watching, guys. He says MSU is better, won't lay down to Michigan, but they haven't seen anything like defense. Better in what way, Defo? I don't think a head-to-head comparison. I mean, I think Michigan is clearly the better team, but that doesn't necessarily. And I do expect.
I think you might be referring
Michigan to win this game. I really do. I expect Michigan to win.
Okay.
But
I think his question is referring to MSU is better than last year.
Oh, okay. Then yeah. Oh, yeah. Certainly, Defo. Yes, and not only better as far as just playing wise. I mean, mentality wise, these guys really. It's a different feel. And I'm not at Michigan State every day like I am at Michigan, but I think that you can tell just by the way that they're playing, and I think that you could tell. least I can, the limited interactions I've had with Spartans players and at press conferences, and I mean, and just talking to Mark D'Antonio on the conference call, you could tell that there's a sense of stability, that things maybe are getting back to normal, and it takes time. But yeah, definitely Michigan State's better than last year. TSYU7 says I'm more worried about our offense than our defense. Thomas, are you more? Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to be worried about Michigan's defense at all.
Yeah, I think Michigan's defense is set up to have a big showing in this game, and that isn't necessarily because I think MSU isn't going to be able to score or anything like that. But I mean, first road game for Michigan State. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Lewerke has ever started a road game yet for the Spartans.
That sounds correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I could be wrong. I know they sort of had that rotation thing for a while going there. He may have played, but I don't think he started a road game yet.
Yeah, I don't think he started.
And, you're setting up with that. This is going to obviously be a big step up. I know Iowa has a solid defense, a good red zone defense, but I mean, this is a different tier. And again, we just talked about the tailgating. It's probably going to be out of control. And I think the crowd's going to be pretty juiced up. I'll put it that way.
I want to over-under on how many public intox tickets Ann Arbor police are going to write. I mean, holy crap.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a record for the Ann Arbor police. We'll say that much.
It is. A couple more questions here and comments real quick. Defo says John O'Corn can move the offense. I agree. TSYU7 says he looked good, man. He really did. Yeah, John looked fantastic against Purdue. TSYU7 wants to know a score prediction, Adam. I'm going to save it for later in the week. Want to just kind of see. I do think this is a close game. I think it's going to be similar to kind of a mix of what we've seen in 2015 and 16, minus, the execution problems. And actually this year, it's Michigan State that has more of the execution. And I guess really there was never any questioning about Michigan's execution. I'm just thinking of the special team, 15 box punt, that kind of thing. And right now, if I did have to pick a team, like who's more prone to commit a mistake like that, I think it would be Michigan State. Michigan State's had some fumbles this year. Even fumbled 3. LJ Scott's had 3 alone. Fumbled last night and nearly lost that recovery. But so I'll say the score prediction. Defo says night game atmosphere is electric. I was there a few years back for Notre Dame. First night game will play a factor for sure. Yeah, I mean, and these guys are going to just be. There's Michigan and Michigan State. There's already that feeling. Yeah. Magnify it by the atmosphere of the night game, plus 115,000 drunk people. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say they're all drunk. A good deal. The majority inebriated and loud at Michigan Stadium, and it already gets loud there. So one thing all those factors, Michigan State. This is that. I know that Jim Harbaugh said the noon football, he likes it because, kicking off at any other time goes against his football sensibilities. But in terms of rivalry sensibilities, this is huge right now. This is for sure. This is a mega rivalry game, I think. And maybe I'm getting a little excited for it, but
I think two things with that. I think you bring up a good point. You asked me about rust earlier this week. I think it might be a little like could Michigan be overhyped at kickoff? That wouldn't shock me. We see sometimes games in these huge night games where the home team will make some mistakes early because they're just too amped up. A guy overruns a route or, a guy loses contain because he's trying to get a big sack to get the crowd going, stuff like that. That wouldn't surprise me. So I think maybe that's a thing to watch, but Michigan will certainly be amped up. Michigan State will certainly be amped up. This is a big game on both sides. And regardless of what anyone says, both of us certainly understand, Michigan has huge games left on the schedule. Michigan State has huge games left on the schedule. But this is a huge game. It's this week. It's going to be under the lights. I think it's going to be really exciting. There's huge storylines on both sides, like you were saying. I mean, can Michigan State's offense move the ball against this, just destructive defense that has been doing such a good job lately, and on the road in this raucous environment. And on the other side, what's going to happen with the quarterbacks for Michigan? Are they going to find some consistency? Can they carry it over from Purdue? I don't know. Theoretically, Michigan State seems to have a better defense than Purdue, so you would think this is a little bit of a step up as well for the Wolverines offensively. So it should be fun. I don't know. Tighten your seatbelts, I guess.
We have a couple more questions and comments. Defo says, Adam Thomas, do you think Michigan runs for over 100 yards? They're, I believe, 23-0 when running for more than 100 under Harbaugh. I can't see either team run. If we're just going based on what we've seen out of the past game for each side, Michigan held what? Purdue had 30 rushing yards last night, and that's. I mean, when you're holding a team to 30 rushing yards, you're doing a pretty good job, right? Michigan State held Iowa to a total of 19, and that's factoring in, that's net yards with the sacks. Akram Wadley had 17 carries for 30 yards. He averaged a yard, 1.8 yards per carry. He had a 9-yard touchdown right up the middle, from the 9-yard line. Obviously, it was a 9-yard touchdown. But other than that, Akram didn't really get anything. And I mean, I was impressed with the way that Michigan State's front four. And again, I thought the linebackers played well. Joe Bacci was in there several times. Chris Fry. I was really impressed with the way that Michigan State handled the Iowa's run game. And Akram Wadley is one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. Let's not forget that. So
absolutely,
you flip it, and I mean, who's run the ball against Michigan? Not even Air Force, who ran the ball 49 times. Air Force didn't even get anything.
Not even Saquon Barkley the last 2 years.
Well, yeah, and I mean those are different circumstances, but just in general, really, who's ran the ball against this Michigan defense? Nobody. I don't see anything changing. I think this is going to be probably a lower scoring game, and it's going to be the quarterback's going to win this game. I don't see the running backs. We barely saw a peep out. It was 14 carries for 28 yards for LJ Scott, and it felt like it was like a test run. That was no question Lewerke's game. It felt like it was a test run for LJ to get him kind of up to speed a little bit, get him ready for Michigan, because they're going to need him. But I don't think either team's going to. I would be shocked if either team ran for 100 yards. Saturday. I would be shocked.
I'm totally with you. I don't think either team's going to run for 100. I think if you are trying to envision a way you think it could happen, I think for Michigan State, it would have to be Lewerke just busting some run, some big, huge one. I mean, maybe, but to get over 100,
he's done it.
Yeah, I mean, he's busted some big ones, but still, to get over 100 would be tough unless it was randomly like a 60-yarder or something. But that's how Michigan State would do it if they did. But certainly unlikely, I think. And for Michigan, I don't really see the way, maybe, but it would have to be a way where, maybe they got up big somehow and they were able to just pound it and start churning out yards. But I don't see that either. I think I agree. I think this game is going to be decided by the quarterbacks and turnovers. How do those guys play and who makes the big mistake, and how can they recover from it, or how does it hit them? Does someone throw a pick six? Does someone fumble in a bad situation? Is there a special teams mistake from one of the sides? I don't know, but I think those are the two big things to watch.
Defo wants to know, and right as we just covered this, he says, if both teams are limited to low running yardage, do you see it? Whoever's quarterback plays better wins. And yeah, absolutely. And I think that Brian Lewerke is dangerous. And statistically he had a better day as a runner than Akram Wadley. Brian had 12 carries for 42 yards. He had a 15-yard carry too. I mean, Brian's got some wheels. He's already had a 52-yard rush against Notre Dame. He had a 61-yarder against Western Michigan. So I mean, I think it was against Western or Bowling Green, one of those two, during one of the first two games of the season. Either way, Lewerke has, and Thomas, I know some people like to pan on his arm. I think that I think he's got a decent arm. Honestly, I mean, I don't see anything. I don't see anything that just jumps out at me and says, "Wow!" But I like it. He throws a short, like throwing darts. You know what I mean? Those type of passes. I like Lewerke, like little slants and hitches and stuff. Just quick release.
Yeah.
I think that's his strength. He does have an arm to go deep. And I think with Felton Davis, they may try that against Michigan secondary, and nobody really has against the Wolverines this year. I
Hmm.
mean, people have tried, but no one's really had any success. And the Wolverines did pretty good, shutting down David Bluff, who is arguably, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten in terms of talent. So this is going to be a big game for Lewerke at the same time. But I think that he's different than any quarterback Michigan's faced this year, and I think that poses a threat. It's not like he's Arian Worthman of Air Force, where he's going to take off and run and doesn't have really that great of an arm. But Brian can keep you guessing because he can run, and at the same time he can throw on the run and make some plays and create. So he is different than any quarterback Michigan's faced this year.
I think I would say I think he has a couple similarities with Zaire, who came in late for Florida, but obviously an odd situation there. He was kind of playing cleanup duty for the Gators. But yeah, I think the big thing for Lewerke, if you're a Michigan State fan, I think you have to hope he's getting out there. He's making Michigan's defense guess. And moreover, Michigan State has to keep him clean, because that was the thing that killed Purdue. Is once he started getting hit, I mean, it was over.
Yeah.
And not to bring up painful memories, literally and figuratively,
Yeah, I
but
mean, last year,
yeah,
yeah,
to Lewerke.
Jabril got
Yeah,
him.
he's got to stay out of those big hits. And we know Michigan wants to bring pressure. We know Bush is going to be getting in there. Gary, Winovich. That's going to be key. How can Michigan State, their offensive line, keep that pressure away? And how does Lewerke move with it? Because we've seen, though limited, some quarterbacks have busted some runs against Michigan's defense. So, I mean, that might be a way for Michigan State to keep the offense moving. But again, it's got to keep him clean, got to keep him upright if they want to beat the Wolverines.
And you guys, we're going to get, I mean, so much more in depth with Michigan and Michigan State throughout this week. Just wanted to give a little peek into it. Those are some of the early things that I'm thinking about. And tomorrow with Jim Harbaugh's Monday press conference, I'll be down there. So in Ann Arbor. So follow me on Twitter at Adam Biggers81 for updates, and I'll have something posted the afternoon. And Thomas, before we end for the evening, I want to talk about this NCAA basketball. I mean, we saw with Rick Pitino effectively fired from Louisville. We've heard all kinds of things. I mean, people are, guys are talking about, former players are saying how they used to get approached with money or offered gifts, and we're kind of seeing a lot of stuff confirmed. Like if you saw the movie Blue Chips, I heard that kind of being thrown around a little bit this week just as a joke. But with NCAA basketball, and there's so much to talk about in terms of the one and done rule, and how big of a involvement a lot of these shoe companies have with AAU teams and so on and so forth. And I mean, we see it in college athletics as a whole. It's not just NCAA basketball and how much influence they have, but I mean, how big of a hit, I guess, is this to just college basketball in general, and B, I mean, Rick Pitino. I got to believe that Rick Pitino's coaching career is finished.
Yeah, I think for Pitino, realistically, it is finished. To start with that question, the only way I think he gets back into coaching short term is he's going to have to go to the NBA, which I don't know if a team has interest in him being a head coach, and I don't know if he'd want to be an assistant. Like that's the big thing. It's after you win a national championship at Louisville and you've been such a big time college coach, I don't know if you'd be okay with sort of sitting down the bench in the NBA.
But I mean, those, in all fairness, those guys probably, if they are going to do it, those guys can at least order their own escorts. The Pitino won't have to do. Pitino won't have to have somebody do that for. I can't. I mean, Rick Pitino. I think I'm almost wondering would an NBA team welcome him? Because I mean, how many other guys that are proven who, okay, maybe not at Rick Pitino's level. I mean, he's certainly a great coach. There's tactically, then there's no debating that. But I think, I mean, what all does this guy have against him that's been publicized? I mean, the the thing with the woman in the restaurant, right? The server, do you remember that? The server,
Yep.
there was some contact there. That we had the escorts with Louisville players. Now it's just, you I guess what's the proper term right now? Basically, what, turning a blind eye? I mean, helping funnel or playing dumb, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
Rick Pitino to me, I, is making John Calipari look like a choir boy right now. I mean, and I'm not, and I'm sorry, maybe that's kind of, John Calipari's done some things too, and he's got a track record as well. But I mean, right now with Rick Pitino was already in that slime ball category, and then you hear this, and you're just like, man, I'm done with this guy.
Yeah.
I can't think of a respectable NBA organization or even, a college, at least Division One. I mean, we might see Rick Pitino coaching a high school team or something, or some junior
Well,
college, or
that's
going
what I was
overseas.
that's what I was gonna say. I think he'd have two realistic options. Yeah, if he wants to stay in this country, is one NBA, which I don't think he can get a head coaching job. That's my personal opinion.
I wouldn't touch
Maybe
it.
I'm wrong. So probably an assistant or some sort of front office job at the NBA, which again, I don't know if he wants or has any interest in. I mean, the first NBA gig didn't exactly go that great. And then second, I assume he's going to have some sort of show cause, most likely from the NCAA, just like Jim Tressel did. Could be wrong. Obviously the NCAA has not investigated anything. If you're wondering, this is all the FBI, not the NCAA. But assuming they investigate, it seems likely, or at least possible, he gets some sort of show cause, which means he can't coach for a couple of years without essentially the NCAA's written permission or something to that extent. He basically, for all intents and purposes, he'd be banned. So after that, I would assume there'd probably be some mid-major program or like a junior college or something like that that would just say, hey, what the hell? Like, we're going to get some bad PR from this, but he's clearly better than any coach we can get, at least in terms of just the ability to win on the floor, regardless of what may have been required to get there. But that's the only way I could see it. Otherwise, I think he's done. As far as the first question originally, what does this mean for college basketball in general? I think it's a good and bad day for the sport. I guess we're a few days removed, but it's been a good and bad week for the sport. I think the good part is anybody who follows college basketball has known this is going on. This isn't surprising in the slightest. I think the only surprising thing is that the FBI decided to get involved with this. I never would have anticipated that. I mean, when you actually sit there and think it through, it makes sense why they did. But that's the part that shocks me. None of this, alleged payments, the involvement of the shoe companies surprises me in the slightest. And I think this has a huge, huge chance to blow up even bigger. They just subpoenaed documents from Nike EYBL, which is the big circuit where the big Nike schools usually recruit from. So I think that's going to be a big thing to watch. And I think, right now, a lot of people are just, they're pointing and laughing, so to speak, at Louisville or some of these schools that look like they might get hit with something.
It sounds like this could happen anywhere, I think.
I think this has a chance to be something that does not end right now. I don't want to put numbers on it because it's so hard to do, because let's start with the fact mid-majors aren't doing this. Like they don't have the resources to do this kind of stuff. But the bigger Power 5 schools, this happens at a lot of schools. And I really do wonder, this is maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic here and a prisoner of the moment, but I really do wonder if this could lead to some permanent and fundamental change in the NCAA. I mean, before we had a coach paying a player, or a booster coming in, and it was always, oh, this is a rogue coach, he's out of control, or oh, this is a rogue booster. Even with SMU, like, okay, yeah, the organization was kind of involved, but really this was just some bad apples, messing up the system that works. This is not just a couple bad apples. This is a systematic scheme at a corporate level. This is Adidas coming in and facilitating. Well, I should say this is according to the police or the FBI's complaint. This is a corporation, Adidas, an international corporation, coming in to essentially funnel money to college players. And it involves major college programs, head coaches, assistant coaches, people all the way down. I mean, this is deep stuff, and so many people are involved. And the thing is it makes you step back and say, I know this is very dramatic, but like, this is almost like a secret cartel sort of thing working to funnel this money around.
It is. I mean, in a sense, you remove it from college. If you keep it for what it is, but if you just take the bare bones from it, and you could apply this to any, like, the way that some like dark underworld, kind of stuff operates. Absolutely. I mean, what do you say? International corporation too. I mean, that just makes it. It's like, wow, this is serious stuff. That, like you said, it's not just a couple coaches and some guys bending the rules. This is a corporation helping facilitate. And for what?
Yeah, and that's I should say, I shouldn't have used the word cartel because that implies violence. There's no violence here, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's a dark underworld. This is like this conspiracy theme for all these people to work out these deals. And it makes you wonder, maybe the NCAA model needs to be revisited. I mean, if we have this kind of dark underbelly developing, how is this a system that's considered functioning? And the telling thing for me is, I don't know if you saw this, but the FBI actually, like, it has been reported that they hid this from the NCAA because they thought the NCAA would like report to the coaches basically and tell them, hey, you're being investigated, like, stop. And to me, that is so telling that this is from the top down. I mean, the alleged coach from Alabama who just resigned recently, which I don't want to get off track with that, but he was in a previous role with the NCAA. I mean, this is the governance structure here. This is big time college coaches. This is assistants. This is an international corporation working in here. This is the AAU. I mean, this is so many different bodies here. And to me, it just says the system's broken. It needs reform. I'm sure, this is a huge issue that has been talked about for countless hours, but I really do wonder if this thing blows open and you start getting, and again, I'm just saying these names generally. I don't want to imply they've done anything, but if you get a Duke or a UCLA or a Kentucky or North Carolina in this thing, I think that starts to change the topic to, okay, like, this isn't just some bad apples. This isn't just some issue. This is like what the sport is right now.
Right.
And I don't know how people like this, that this is how it works.
Yeah, I mean, and just stepping away, just myself as a college basketball fan, yeah, you want to sit back and wonder, you want to believe that there are guys out there who are really doing it clean. Mm-hmm. And I guess, and what does clean mean these days? Does clean mean you just don't get caught? Does clean mean, okay, well, you're not over the top with it, and these guys are able to kind of keep it to themselves a little bit more, you're more discreet? I mean, what exactly does clean mean? Or clean mean, look, none of this is going on, period. And I don't want to mention coaches' names, but just to say here locally, I mean, we've never heard anything like this with Tom Izzo's name connected. We've never heard anything like this with John Beilein's name connected. And I'm not insinuating that, I mean, they were voted by their peers, by coaches, as two of the cleanest coaches in the nation. But again, and I'm just using these guys for example, I would be absolutely shocked if I were to hear Michigan State were involved in something like this, or Michigan. It would change just my whole view of the program. It changed my view as my view of Beeline as a coach, my view of Tom Izzo as a coach, because then you're like, there is really nothing even remotely, pure or clean about college basketball if guys like Izzo were Beeline. And I'm saying in theory, or
Yeah.
again, that you mentioned, like, program like North Carolina or Duke, where you would think, I mean, those are the blue bloods of college basketball. Kentucky, you don't need to do, well, maybe Kentucky's a bad example, but you don't need to do that kind of thing. And I mean, I would be absolutely floored. And then, yeah, how, like you mentioned, how deep does this go? And is this just, okay, well, there's four schools in this report. That's what they know right now. Or I guess, what would be their reasoning to just name four, Thomas? I mean, is that just because, okay, they have the most dirt on those four right now? I mean, that there has to be more. This is the tip of the iceberg, I think, in regards to this kind of thing in college basketball.
Yeah, I think the big question is this the start of a long, investigation, so to speak, or a long process? I mean, this has been developing for a long time. I mean, they used undercover agents, they've tapped phones. There's a lot that has gone into this, but this document that came out that everyone's talking about, it's the complaint, it's like the criminal charges that they're putting. Because again, that's another thing to mention here. There are people that got arrested that might go to jail as a result of this. This is
For
serious
college
stuff.
basketball recruiting, yeah, isn't one guy's that a person he's facing like 80 years, isn't he?
Well, I mean, like, if you think about this, These are guys, like, in every other facet of their lives, or at least we believe, these guys are upstanding citizens. They're making like 100K or more a year. The Adidas guy is certainly making way more than that. And these guys are suddenly, oh, now I'm going to be potentially in jail. These are the kind of people that are being targeted because of this horrible NCAA structure. And sorry to throw out my opinion here, but I think big reform is needed at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think the big question was, is this going to be just part one, or is this going to be ongoing? And I think when we saw that that Nike was getting subpoenaed, I think it was telling that this is not ended. This is just beginning. And if you want kind of an odd thought process, this is a little off the wall, but I'll throw this out there as well. If you just want some perspective on how big this scandal could be. So Louisville effectively fired its AD and Pitino last week after these allegations came out. Again, they didn't actually fire them, but effectively they were. Well, there's a clause in Bobby Petrino, the football coach's contract, apparently, that his buyout reduces by like a couple million if the AD changes. And there are certainly a lot of jobs opening in the SEC this offseason and in the South. Like, this could lead to massive college coaching, college football head coaching moves just as a result of this college basketball scandal. So that's how big it is. Like, this could cross sports. And it's crazy. And I certainly will be tuning in as we move forward.
Right, and all over some shoes, some $100,000 payments to some kids, and I mean, it sounds like, I mean, Brian Bowen was a huge target for Michigan State. I know that Michigan was in on him for a short time too, but it sounded like, it looked like he was going to go to Arizona. That's what I thought when it came down in the end, and then bam, going to Louisville. I mean,
it was out of nowhere.
Just out of nowhere, and all the dates, I mean, match up. I mean, you gotta wonder too, if you're an athlete out there and you see this kind of stuff happening. If you're a big time recruit, I mean, you have to wonder, like, okay, what is that little bit of money right now? I mean, because if you're a surefire NBA guy, you're one and done. I mean, $100,000 is nothing. I mean, that's just okay, comfort money to play around with while you're in college, probably. If you're at that level of talent, I think you have to be a little more mindful and say, look, I'm not going to potentially risk everything. I mean, you look at what's could be around the corner for Brian Bowen. I mean, it's unfortunate.
Well, the one thing I'd say for him is like, I mean, I don't know how Louisville is like they're going to have to figure out not just Louisville, but they're going to have to figure out the eligibility of these players that are
Right.
allegedly included into this like within a week or two because the season is right around the corner. But as far as you talked about the players and what it means for them. I mean, I think even going back, and again, I hate mentioning specific names because we don't have anything that links these guys. I just want to use them as an example. But like, how much was Ben Simmons worth to LSU for that year that he was
Right.
there? Like, LSU was completely irrelevant in basketball. I don't care what anyone says. They were terrible before. They were completely irrelevant. Nobody went to their games. No one cared. Ben Simmons goes there. They're on ESPN every single night for an entire season.
Right.
And I don't know how much that would have valued that school. And I know they never made the NCAA tournament that year, but they were relevant for an entire season when they hadn't been. And the thing for me is like, again, not saying I know anything about Ben Simmons. I'm just using him as an example because countless of other players have done the same thing. But Brian Bowen, really solid recruit last year, 5-star, big time prospect. He wasn't even the best prospect in his class. So it makes you wonder what some of these payments could have been. Because, come on, Brian Bowen was not the first player who received one of these checks.
Oh no.
Probably won't be the last either, I would add. But it makes you wonder. I mean, did some of these players get half a mil? I don't know, but it seems possible to me.
And I think too, there are probably a lot of deciding factors. I think too, a lot of it comes down to the people that they surround themselves with. And if you have, a camp and everybody wants a piece of, you're Mr. 5-star recruit, you're one and done. Everybody wants a piece of you, and all of a sudden, these guys are talking to, I call them handlers for lack of better reason or lack of a better term. These guys, it's almost like they're shopping the kid. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
at that point, I mean, what is it about? And we could go more into this. This is going to be developing story, guys, but we'll end it on this tonight. I mean, it's when you say how it's going to impact with coaching thing, it could cross sports too. I think overall, I mean, maybe this just a situation might cross sports, and hopefully it is kind of like a wake up call for guys. And it's easy for me, and it'd be easy for you to say like, oh, hey, don't take the money, 100, whatever that is. You're going to have so much more down the line. Some of these kids though don't always do that, and for a lot of these kids, I mean, I can't say if someone shoved $100,000 in my face. I'm a college kid, and especially if I come from kind of meager beginnings, maybe I don't come from a wealthy family or something like that. It's extremely hard, and even if it's not directly, it sounds like with the shoe thing and AAU and Adidas, even if the coaches aren't directly involved, it's how can the coaches can only shield the players from, if, like you mentioned, a rogue booster or somebody like that for so often, or some of these agents or whatever. Basically, they're preying on college kids. I mean, the coaches can only do so much. So I do think this is probably going to be something that's cited, and I'm sure that they talk about it as far as educating their players and everything. On basically, hey, don't take money because you can do a lot more harm than what you think that money is going to do good. So I want to thank everybody for watching tonight. I want to thank everybody who participated in the live chat. Thomas and I will have podcast Wednesday, kind of like the preview show, but you guys all have some solos throughout the week. We'll probably end up going 4 or 5 times this week, I'm sure, with Michigan and Michigan State week. So thanks everybody for watching on the Sports in the Mitten live stream. You can find us on iTunes as well, Google Play, and the FanRag Sports Blog Talk Radio channel. You can follow the podcast at Mitten Sports MI, and you can find us on Facebook. Please like and share at Sports in the Mitten, and follow me on Twitter at Adam Biggers 81. And I feel like that's such a lot to remember. You can follow Thomas too.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Beindit.
BT Powerhouse 2 is probably getting ready to get cranked up with college basketball season around the corner. Tom Izzo just had, I wasn't able to make it out there. Tom Izzo he met with the media Friday for the first time this season, and we'll get into a lot of stuff with Michigan State basketball, Michigan basketball. Plenty of reason on both sides to be excited. I think Michigan and Michigan State are going to be. I like the potential for Michigan State. So we'll get into that. Again, thanks everybody for watching and getting in live chat. We'll talk to you sometime this week.